I want to make myself perfectly clear here. Number one, I am not against churches. Number two, I am not against pastors. I am not against Sunday school teachers. I'm not against prayer meeting people, leaders of any kind. I'm not against anyone. Okay. That being said, I'm not against those of you that have every right to criticize me. We live in a free country, and whatever people criticize me for, really, it doesn't concern me nor bother me. What would trouble me and bother me is if the Lord had an issue with me. And from everything that He has ever done from beginning to end with me, He's proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that even what people don't think is true, what they don't know, is yet to come. For He told me from the beginning that what you have to say is going to be, in the beginning, very controversial. For there have been many things taught that my people have no idea. And because of that, He says there are going to be people that will come after you. People will raise up in the Word, and they will literally, unknowingly, cherry pick it. They literally, unknowingly will take what they have learned all the way back, and they will use it like they've used doctrine, and they will use it to prove that what He is saying through me is wrong. Okay, the Lord told me, Marion, if they had me, the Lord, holding their hand, pulling them through everything, manifesting myself before them, they wouldn't ever do that because they would know. There are many people who know who I am. You may think I am claiming to be perfect. I am claiming to be without mistake. I am claiming to be something. What you think doesn't matter to me. For it is impossible for any man to be perfect in the sight of most people. There are always those who don't know, who never experienced, who do not understand, that are going to cherry pick. That's their problem. But I do know what Jesus said about when you say, I know. You have no idea how many people in my life through the years said, oh, I know. Oh, I understand. I know exactly where you're at. I know exactly where you're coming from. And many of them fell by the wayside, fell into different things because they did not know what they thought they knew. My job as a prophet is to tell them the truth, make it clear so there's no mistake, and if they don't like it, there is nothing I can do about it. My job as a prophet is to clarify the will of God in our lives, not just your life, but in my life. If you receive me, that's between you and God. And I pray, dear God, that you get blessed, that even if you don't understand, even if you can't see it, I am not against you. Because I know certain things will take time, certain things will take experience. And I know how God worked it out with me. I know that through it all, when I was positive that I knew it all and I had it all, I know how He spoke to me. And I know how He let that part of me die. I know how He led me into the most painful, the most clear death of the flesh that anybody could go through. And I know how he rose inside of me completely, completely victorious. I couldn't have done that. All the things that happened to me were impossible for me to go through. I haven't even mentioned or told you a lot of them. You only hear some of them. I have 1,000 videos at least out there that tell you testimony after testimony after testimony. And it's only the tip of the iceberg. You really don't know. I mean, you could say, well, it's impossible for anybody to go through that. It's impossible for one woman to go through it. Well, surely God would have picked a man. Well, maybe there's enough men that the Lord was very angry with for what they've done to women. And maybe there's enough women that he was very angry with for what they tried to do to men. I'm not for men, and I'm not against men. I'm not for women, and I'm not against women. I'm not fighting for the rights of women, and I'm not fighting for the rights of men. I only know some things that go deep in my heart. And one of those things is when God said that David was after his own heart. The Lord revealed to me the treasures of a man in what God created. The Lord revealed to me how awesome it is to know a true man of God. The Lord revealed that to me, and I told you, when I stand in their presence, I'm telling you, my eyes cannot look up. I'm like this, in total submission. But there are men that God has no respect for the things they say or do because they have no respect for God. That's not my fault, and that's not my doing. I also told you that there are women that take it upon themselves, then they think, they literally are so foolish as to think because their husband isn't this and isn't that, that they take over the headship of the house. That is not God's will. There is no woman that God ever called to be head of her own house. What she has done is she has muffled him, bound his ears, did everything to suffocate him, and took over. Oh, you say, oh no, you don't know. You don't know what hey. I have seen God take men who were literally mean, filled with self-hatred, because they knew they were wrong. And they knew they were married to a woman who was doing everything they should have done. They've even told me, they even come to me and told me, you frighten me, Marion, because you're everything I'm supposed to be. I didn't tell them that. I said, well, why don't you change? Why don't you go before God and become what you're supposed to be? But no, it's easier to target me. It's easier to use me as the shining example of being wrong. Because surely God would never let you suffer this. Well, as surely as God is so angry. I can tell you, he's angry. He's angry at what you've done with your authority. He's angry with the way you've used it and slung it and made Jesus Christ look like you. You see, you didn't have Jesus Christ in you and you change to look like him. You took him and made him look like you. And you're sitting there believing with all of your heart that you know something that you don't know. Well, it's the same thing with some of you women. That you think you're so spiritual. You know, God talks to his handmaidens. He loves them. But some of you are way, way too high. My job as a prophet is to teach them how to submit to their husbands. How to submit. Oh, the joy of submission is unlike anything else, especially if God has given you a man. But some of you, through years of experiencing, believing that you're everything, you have destroyed them. And you won't back up. Just like some of you men, through years of experience, have destroyed your wife, your helpmate, and you won't back up. The stubbornness, the rebellion, the positive, I know, I know, I know. That's why the Lord Jesus Christ himself said, if you had not said, I know, I would have never held you accountable. But now that you say you know, now you can have trouble with God because he doesn't like it. I can say I know. I'm a prophet. Go out and be a prophet. Go ahead. Go make yourself a prophet. Ooh. Go ahead. Go from church to church to church. Stand there and rebuke that pastor that you think is so awful. Because you're, quote and unquote, a prophet. And he gave you a special dispensation to rip and tear that pastor down. No, he did not. That pastor was called by God, not by you. And his mistakes are before God, not before you. What this man has done, that man has done, is none of your business. If you were to work hard enough to die to self, pick up your cross, which is you would never see someone doing wrong. You wouldn't. Because once you go through that process, all of the people that had ever worked overtime to hurt me, I was not looking at their wrongs. I did not see what they were doing to me. My eyes were not upon them. My eyes were upon Jesus. And what I saw was his love for them. That was all I saw. I didn't see anything else. And if you are looking anywhere else, you're only claiming to have God. And you don't even know him. How are you going to find him when you're positive you have him and you're not doing it? You're not dying to self. Understand, you can't allow God to filter through your flesh. You let him filter through the flesh of your eyes, your mind, your own thinking, your own mouth. You let him filter through your flesh. Oh, but I got Jesus. I think about how he said you were poor, blind, and naked. You're not going where he wants you to go. You only say you do. You're not doing what he wants you to do. You blatantly even confess. Well, I know, God told me, I know I should change, but I just, I don't know what's wrong with me. Well, go read it in the Word. Go find out what the Word says about you going on doing your own thing. Go find out how Jesus Christ looked at it. If you know if a man knows something is a sin and he does it, to him it's a sin. If you know it's wrong, why do you keep on doing it? If you died to yourself, you wouldn't touch it. rather die. It's the thing you don't understand. You would rather crawl than to offend anyone. You don't care if your knees bleed. You don't care if your hands bleed. You will not offend anyone. That is dying. I just remembered how I went and helped take care of my baby brother. And coming out of Vietnam, his allergies were so great that he had to sleep on a plastic covered bed, plastic pillow, no curtains, no blinds of any kind. And you had to take that sanitarium, what do you call it? During those days, I mean, we're talking 40 years ago. During those days, you had to take that sweeper that went through the water so it would blow pure air. They used to use them, for TB and all that other stuff. You can get those probably now easily, but at that time you couldn't. And you had to take that and run this sweeper over every inch of that room. And you had to do this every day before he went to sleep. Every inch. He was so weak and so ill that the doctor said it would take feeding him 3 times a day, 3 full meals. That means meat, vegetables, potatoes, everything he needed. He could not gain weight. When he tried to breathe, every corpuscle in his face broke out as they rushed him to the emergency room nightly. There was a general that he was stenographer to, and he went through a lot only to come home with this illness, and I worked. I knew he wanted a garden. So I plowed his garden. I dug it up. And I remember the wheelbarrow. I took diapers and wrapped up my hands because they bled. They were bleeding so bad. I did not feel the pain. I felt his need. I didn't care what I had to do. I was going to do it. If I died in the doing, I was going to do it. And as those hands bled, you could not imagine the reward of knowing that he, within 2 months, was so completely healed that he got his wife pregnant. They could finally have a baby. It was worth every moment of what I went through that he could work his own garden, but he didn't have to dig it. You see, looking with the eyes of God, you don't look at what you're going through. You look at him. You look at the way he looked at my brother. And he saw my brother's need. I didn't see mine. I didn't care. I would have crawled and I would have died if I had to. But you want to come and tell me I don't know anything about God because I don't know it your way. I've given you testimony after testimony because God knows that stubborn heart of yours, that determination to say you're something when you're nothing. If Jesus stood right in front of you, you'd spit at him. Oh, you're positive you never would. That's what makes it so bad. He says you're the generation that would have done it. Looking at things with the eyes of God, there's a lot of people that sacrifice for others. Some even give their life for others. A lot of people. But there are not a lot of people who do it for years over and over and over and over and over and then some for years and years and years with no thought to themselves, no thought to their needs, no thought for anything for themselves, just a constant, complete giving and doing for all others. Where everybody that knows you knows that's how you are. You don't know how to be any other way. Because, like Peter said, it comes natural to do the will of God. When you're dead to yourself, it becomes natural to do everything God's way. You don't even have to operate in it. You don't have to work in it. And you don't have to die anymore. Because you see, you're laying there dead. You don't exist. What you want, what you think, what you felt is gone. Every trip, have your way, Lord. Do your will, Lord. Whatever you want, Lord. Paul the Apostle called it being a slave to Jesus Christ. And I marveled at that because I always thought, wow, how could anybody think that they're a slave to God? You know, where he wrote, you're no longer a slave to sin. You're no longer led by the nose to do things for just yourself. You know, if you like being told how wonderful you are, if you enjoy that and you marvel in that, that's why a lot of times I don't even read comments. Because I don't want to hear that. I've seen it destroy. Not that I don't care about you. Some of those comments, I've prayed for you. But you need to understand, I may be what you might think is wrong. I'm not saying I may be that to me, but I'm saying to you, I may be to you what you think is wrong. Try dying to self. Go before God. Walk that life that you're so positive you have. Walk that way that you're so positive is the straight and narrow, that you're so positive you know what you're doing. Go. I want you to go so bad. Because I know that's where I found Christ. So I know if you go there, you will too. But I know that if you pick up one tiny speck of flesh, you're in trouble. Because eventually, a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. Eventually, it's going to rot the whole apple if you leave it stay there. You can say, well, you know, I've heard pastors say it over and over. It's going to be all right. Just let it go. Just accept it by faith. Let it go. My roast is done. Had to get my roast done. Had to have prayer before we sat down to eat. Have to look and see. Well, looking for my magnifying glass. Oh, God is so good. guess I'm going to have to let you go.